Well, hey everybody, and welcome back to Bottomless Coffee with me, Jerome. We did it. We're in season 2, and we are in for a treat today. Go ahead and get comfortable, because we have the privilege of talking with attorney and change maker Ellie Krug about how she uses her work and her life to make the world a better place and a more inclusive place for all of us. Welcome, Ellie. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jerome. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Delighted. I feel like I'm bubbling over, and I've got some easy questions because some people don't know you, but I want to get to the good stuff of the conversation, you know? So, okay. True or false, you're still an attorney?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
What's your practice area?
No, I don't practice.
Oh,
I'm still licensed, though.
Okay.
I just actually, on June 30th, just completed what I needed to do for my continuing legal education credit. So,
gotcha.
Yep. So I'm still licensed, not practicing, but it's important for me and my self-identity to still have the license.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I practiced law back in Georgia years and years ago, but my husband still says I'm a recovering attorney. So.
Okay,
yes.
I get that.
You have a radio show.
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about your radio show?
So the radio show is on AM 950. It's one of the less than 30 progressive radio stations left in the country.
Oh, okay.
When Air America was on, they carried Air America with Al Franken and Rachel Maddow. My show is Ellie 2.0 Radio,
okay.
And it's been on, that iteration has been on the station since 2017.
Okay.
We're approaching 300.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, we're approaching 300 episodes. The show is about idealism and idealists. So I define an idealist as somebody working to create positive change to make the world better. There you go. Okay. And so I bring on a variety of people from all across. I mean, I had a black musician who went and still does talks to the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh my gosh.
And talks them out of being in the Klan.
Oh wow.
And befriends Klan members, like being invited to their children's weddings and things like that.
Wow.
So I've had him on my show. John Blake from CNN I've had on the show. He's a wonderful writer and commentator. Just has a brand new book out.
Yeah.
Today I interviewed, which will air tomorrow, I interviewed a woman from Living Room Conversations. It's
Okay.
a nonprofit that helps us cross the bridge to the divide between where we are as a country and gets people from different perspectives talking to each other.
Well, that's wonderful and sounds right up my alley. So
Yeah.
I will absolutely check that one out for sure. It's called Ellie 2.0.
Yep, Ellie 2.0 Radio.
Okay.
Yep.
Now you also have a newsletter.
I do.
Okay. I've read many of your newsletters
Oh,
and
my
they're
goodness.
wonderful, but
Oh,
please tell us just a little bit about it.
Well, the newsletter is named The Ripple because one of my heroes is Robert F. Kennedy. And in 1966, Robert F. Kennedy went to South Africa, which at the time was at the height of apartheid. He spoke at Cape Town University, and he railed against apartheid, told the South African government that they needed to stop it. And he gave this speech called the Ripples of Hope speech, which is, and there's a phrase in the speech about how individual ripples of courage and bravery can come to create a river of hope, of change. And so that's why the newsletter is named The Ripple.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's about, I share about good stories about humans because all we hear are sad things.
Yeah.
And so I share about how humans are good and compassionate to each other. I share about some challenges that we have, but the focus is about us being good to each other. And people come away, I hear a lot from people, the readers of the newsletter, that they really enjoy it. Some of them depend on it to help brighten their spirits. So
It certainly brightened my spirit when I was reading it. And I
you.
think, I don't know if this was in your newsletter on your website, but someone used Kennedy's thought process, or what would Kennedy tell you to do, kind of against you.
They sure did.
When you were weighing whether or not to run for school board. So true or false, you are a member of, an elected member of a school board.
I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right. I went to, a group of people came to me out in Carver County, which went for Trump by 6. It's red to purple county, but a group of people came to me last year this time and said I should run for the school board. I was really wavering on it. I went and I talked to a trusted friend, and within the first minute, my trusted friend said, "Well, what would Bobby tell you to do?"
60 seconds in.
Yeah. What would Bobby tell you to do?
Yeah.
And that pretty much did it in.
Well, how has your experience been, specifically because, speaking of just inclusion, Chaska is in Carver County.
It is, yeah.
And as a Black person, it came up on my news feed a couple of years ago because there were some shenanigans that were taking place in the school system there.
Yeah, the district had some incidents of racial intolerance. You know, the district has grown quite a bit since then.
Wonderful.
So since then we've hired a Black superintendent, okay, in a predominantly white school district. We've instituted, there was a series of lawsuits filed, and the school district is under a consent decree to change the way it handles instances of racial intolerance. And actually what the district has done is it's created a national model for how to prevent instances of racial intolerance, and when they occur, how to deal with them on a timely, smart, comprehensive way. It's really changed from what happened back in 2019.
Well, I have to tell you, because I did not know before you were scheduled to come onto the show that you had taken a seat on that school board, but I was so reassured knowing that there was someone like you there, because I know that a big part of your mission, which you can read all about in the newsletter, is about making the world a more inclusive place and a better place for all of us. And so I know you're doing that in your work. I know you're doing that in what spare time, I don't know what spare time you have, but I know it seems like your life mission. Would that be correct?
It is my life mission.
Well, can you just tell us about it?
Well, so first of all, I define inclusion as the extent to which a human feels as if they matter. Okay. Some people define inclusion as a sense of belonging, and I don't do that because I think it's possible to feel that you belong somewhere, but that you won't matter. So, for example, I'm an Iowan at heart. I'd really love to take my last breaths on this earth and on Iowa soil rather than anywhere else. I wanted to go back to Iowa, but I waited until the 2020 elections occurred because I wanted to see what happened in Iowa with those elections. And it became an even redder state than what it had been.
Wow.
And when the leadership of the state, the Republican Party, said that they had a mandate from the voters, if you're queer, you hear the word mandate come out of the mouth of a conservative politician, you know that that's not a good thing. So even though I feel that I belong in Iowa, okay, that I should be there, I know that I don't, that I won't matter if I go there. Okay, in fact, it would be less than mattering because I'd be targeted. And so although I still thought about whether, to go there and, pick up the gauntlet, but I made the tactical decision to stay in Minnesota where I'm known and where I have alliances and where, while I can go and do the work in Iowa, okay, I still have the ability to live safely.
Well, as a Minnesotan, I'm glad we won. I'm glad that our legislature is passing laws to make sure that you are protected and that you feel safe, and that Minnesota is a home for you and all of our siblings. So,
thank you. It's, and generally my work around human inclusivity, around helping people feel as if they matter, is in the form of, like the newsletter, in the form of the radio show that we've talked about, but mainly it's about me going and speaking I train on human inclusivity. I have a talk called Gray Area Thinking,
Okay.
which is not focused about queer people. It's not focused on skin colors for all humans, regardless of
Yes.
the color of your skin, who you love, what religion you practice or not, who do you go to bed as, all those kinds of different things, okay? And my Gray Area Thinking is a talk I've given across North America. So I've spoken in Canada as well as in the US, and it's a tool set on how to be welcoming to people who are different or other, compared to us. People love that talk because it's not what they expect. It's disarming. And right off the bat, at the beginning of the talk, we talk about me being other. Because, let's face it, I look like a woman. You can nod your head right now, Jerome,
Yes.
okay? All right?
Yes, ma'am.
But I sound like a dude. Don't nod so much. And, but what I do, so you're a lawyer, okay? All right?
Okay.
Lawyers are taught to make lemonade out of lemons,
Yes.
right? This is a lemon. It is a obstacle in my life in a variety of ways. But I decided to make it a teaching tool. And the way that I do that is, first in Gray Area Thinking, address the fact that there's bumpiness in the room because people are trying, we need to group and label humans. We need to put them in categories, and we attach things to those categories. So as soon as they hear my voice, there's bumpiness because they don't know whether to put me in the male category, the female category. Oh my God, what am I going to do if it talks to me, kind of thing. So I address it right at the beginning. Midway through the talk, I'll ask everybody, because I'll introduce the concept of human familiarity, of us taking some risks, getting to know people who are different or other compared to us, sharing some lived experience, hearing lived experience. And at that point in the talk, I'll ask, how are you doing with my voice? And if you've adjusted, and if you're getting past it, now you understand the fundamental power of human familiarity.
Oh, there you go.
And then for those of you who are still having a problem, wait till the end of the talk. And at the end of the talk, that's the last question I ask everybody. How are you doing with my voice? Have you gotten past it?
I love that you kind of introduced the Gray Area Thinking as saying it's not just about someone being trans or queer or black or what have you, because as a black man, I'm like, we've had this conversation about black people, about gay people, about trans people. I feel like we're having to have the same conversation over and over and over again.
Well, and for me, it was important to give a tool set.
Yes,
Okay. And it's a very simple tool set. It has 3 elements: awareness of human vulnerability or suffering, risk-taking to lessen or alleviate another human's vulnerability or suffering, and acting with compassion or kindness. Spells out the acronym ARC, A-R-C. Very simple to understand. We demonstrate through role plays, and people love it.
Well, what's risky about helping someone else feel less vulnerable?
So you and I may scratch our heads about why would that be risky, okay? But people generally are afraid. People generally are afraid of the color of your skin. People generally are afraid, depending where we are, of course, okay? People are generally afraid of this, and the reality is that we can make anybody other. We can do it. We can do, the experiment done with the brown eyes and the blue eyes in the classroom in Iowa in the 1960s. She made kids other on the basis of skin color, or excuse me, eye color. And then she saw what happened when the kind of behavior that just even school kids had when somebody was put into an other category.
Yeah.
So we're generally afraid of what we don't understand and we don't know, or what we're being told is other. But the reality, you and I both know this. You sit down with somebody, you just, hey, do you have a child in your life, or do you have a pet in your life? For most people, it's like, yeah. Most people want to tell you about their pets before they tell you about their kids.
Yes.
Oh, what's the name of your dog? What kind of dog?
Yeah,
Pike.
Right. It took my neighbor a while to remember my name, but they remember Pike's name the very first time.
And my boy's named Jack.
There you go. But as you were speaking, I even even being familiar with this, I really have a tough time I don't want to believe that people are afraid. You know what? I think that's the root of it. But I understand that people are, because they're so easily manipulated by fear, by, unfortunately, politicians a lot of the time. So I ran for office, and so I got a peek behind the curtain, as it were, as kind of what's going on. And you get approached by every interest group, let's say. They want you to take a position one way or another.
Right.
And at least for me, probably because of my past legal training, so I'm interested to see if you had the same experience, a lot of the activists speak. A lot of the groups that were speaking to me were kind of echoing the same sentiment over and over and over again in different words. And I was like, well, you guys should all just kind of be together. And it makes me think that maybe people are doing the same thing on the other side of the aisle. Like you're nonpartisan on the school board, I'm sure. But I was running as a DFLer. So I was getting all the DFL stuff. And I have to imagine that the Republicans are getting all of the hyper-conservative, mobilized, organized groups who are saying, well, if you really want to win this election, then you've got to tell people that, like, black people are coming for the jobs or something.
Yeah. Are they going to drive down the street one day and burn your house down?
You know, so, precisely.
Yeah. Well, you know, no, it's, so I'm old enough to remember what it was like.
I was going to ask you that, yes.
Before Newt Gingrich started to polarize our politics. I mean, it really does go back to Newt and deciding that it was winner take all kinds of
Georgia,
politics. Yeah. But I remember that people would disagree, okay, and then in the Senate or in the House, they'd go and get a drink afterwards, you know, and they'd still be friends. They could talk with each other. What has happened in the last 30 years is that we've gotten to the point where if you don't agree with me, I'm not going to be your friend, you know. And in fact, I may do my best to shut out your voice entirely and what you represent. And so, interestingly, okay, my school board election, so when I decided that I would run, there were 4 open seats, okay?
Oh, okay.
All right? And then, and with 2 incumbents running again. So I figured there were 2 seats, okay? The incumbents get reelected. What I did not anticipate was that when I filed, 12 people would be running, including the 2 incumbents. Okay. So we really had 10 people vying for 2 seats. And out of that 10, there were 4 of them that were a conservative bloc that, you know, anti-wokeism, you know, why gives LGBTQ children any special attention, you know, or protections? They don't need it, you know, kind of that, you know.
And this is, you know, in the Chaska area where this stuff has already happened in 2019 and they're still running on this platform.
Yeah. So, but what I did is one of those 4, I befriended.
Oh.
He seemed like a pretty affable guy, okay? And I met him during, you know, as we were running to get to know him. Yeah. And shared a little bit, just exactly what we're talking about. Shared a little bit of my story. I'm sure I was the first transgender person he'd ever met. He shared a little bit about his story. We did some laughing, you know, as we were meeting. And at the end, I said, Joe, will you do me a favor? When they start in on me, will you not join them? And he said, I'll do better than that. I'll tell them that you're a lovely person. And you know what? I think he did do that.
Beautiful.
And so he got elected. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So out of the 4, I got elected. He got elected. Yes. So that took care of the seats. And he and I have kept this friendship.
Wonderful.
But what's happened now is I'm hearing from my quarters, what's up with you and Joe? You know?
Oh, because you were friends with someone who's more conservative.
Right. You know, and he's hearing that, what are you doing with her? Okay. And on top of that, you know, I'm transgender and a Buddhist. So he's going around, what are the odds that I'm a friend with somebody that's like that? And my answer back to those in my quarter is, I'm modeling. That's what I'm doing. I'm modeling. Now they all think I'm, being co-opted. That I mean, I'm 66 years old, a lawyer. No one is going to co-opt Ellie Krug. Okay.
That's so on brand for you. Of course you reached out to this person and forged a human-to-human connection that you're now maintaining.
Yes.
As a human. Where is the surprise? It's right on the website.
I mean, I was at his house for dinner 2 weeks ago, I mean, we got elected, and he and I went out for lunch and had drinks, What is wrong with that?
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Now, he and I are going to disagree. We've already disagreed, okay? But it doesn't mean I have to hate him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to hate me. Because at some point, I mean, there are things that we do agree. I mean, he and I both are, laser focused on discrepancies in test scores between the white kids and kids of other skin colors. Okay, he's on that. That's important for him.
Yeah.
Okay, we're both concerned about enrollment. So we have these things that and I just believe that our leaders, and I'm just a little leader here, okay, but our leaders who are higher up have to be doing the same thing.
And I'm just going from the legislation that's being passed all over the country, I have to think that's not what's happening, unfortunately.
No, it's not. Well, not as it relates to women's reproductive health rights, or as it relates to LGBTQ folks, particularly transgender people.
Yep.
I mean, there are more than 500 anti-LGBTQ bills passed in the country, or not passed, but considered this legislative season. But right now there are at least 20 states where trans kids and youth can't get health care,
Oof.
So for, their
gender-affirming care.
Gender-affirming care. And there are more than 20 states where trans kids can't participate in sports from kindergarten all the way up through college, public college, university, senior year.
So you mentioned that you've been following since Gingrich, the politics. I'm relatively new. Are we at a place where the rate of legislation that you're seeing, this amount of legislation, is this normal or abnormal? Should we be a little alarmed, very alarmed?
We should be very alarmed. And so, I mean, what has happened, particularly as it relates to transgender people, and, there are not a whole lot of us, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there's more than what people believe, trust me, okay? Because I'll go and speak, not even on a transgender, not on a top, I mean, I have a talk called Trans 101, but gray area thinking, as we've already established, isn't queer focused, but I'll have people come up to me after the talk, Ellie, my grandchild's transgender, or my daughter is, or, my niece is, and I mean, there's way more. But no, to answer your question, what we're seeing is an incredible amount of oppression, legalized oppression, because this is the actions of the state targeting a group of people, and not to co-opt anything. But we've not seen this kind of legalized oppression by the state directed at a group of people since Jim Crow. We've not. I mean, this is above and beyond anything that has occurred since, the late 1800s up to the 1950s. And for me, the reaction is, where is the outrage?
100%. And I'm so glad you said that. One, because I am alarmed for you, for our siblings, but then also the oversteps from some of these legislators who are telling me that what I can or cannot wear? Like, excuse me? Like, it's nonsense. If I want to wear a dress, I'm going to wear a dress. Go screw yourself. This is America. You know what I mean? Like, where was this concern that, we're going to be adopting Sharia law or whatever, and then women will be forced to wear one thing or another? Well, just the opposite of that is telling me that I cannot wear what I want to wear. And so just on its face, the absurdity seems so apparent that it's really shocking to me that more people aren't, like at the bar with their representative saying, so, this seems dumb.
Well, but we're back to fear,
True.
And we're also back to people not doing. So again, child of the 60s and 70s, pre-computer, you used to actually have to work to get information.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you used to have to pick up a newspaper and read it.
Yeah.
In order to get your information.
I had the printed encyclopedias.
Same thing, okay?
Yeah.
Britannica, yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica. And, or you watched the news, but the news was totally information-based rather than slanted. But if there was an opinion, editorial opinion, they told you that. You knew that in the clip that they were doing it, but they weren't masquerading it as facts.
Yes.
And so all of that has changed. And we've gotten lazier. People don't read the newspaper anymore. People tune in to purported news, okay? And I will say that that's on both sides of the ledger.
I agree.
All right, okay? I mean, I love MSNBC, but you don't need to tell me the same thing 5 times, in the same,
Yeah, the same segment, same
and
paragraph.
what about what's going on in the world, okay? Other than, outside of Washington, D.C. And so by getting lazy, we've allowed our brains to be co-opted. We've dumbed down. There's no doubt. No doubt about it. We have dumbed down, and we've allowed the loudest in the room to dictate how we think.
Yeah. And there's any informed opinion has the same weight as a scientist, let's say. But let's make sure, because I don't have a clock over there, but I feel like we probably run long. And I know we didn't want to go negative, so let's flip the question. What's giving you hope these days?
Oh, I got elected in a
There you go.
red county, okay?
Yep.
I'm a transgender person who does not pass because of my voice. All you have to do is go online, and in 30 seconds, you know about me being trans, and you can find where I may have been strident about protecting humans, okay? And yet, I came in 3rd in the vote tally, right after the 2 incumbents.
There you go.
And so that gives me hope. The kids that I see, I sat yesterday with a transgender boy who just graduated from our school district. And he talked about how things were hard, but they're better for him personally. And he's going to soon live on his own, and he's got a full-time job, and he's going to go to college, and and he feels good about his future, okay? And what gives me hope is my undying belief that 98% of all humans are good. 2% incredibly challenged, okay? But 98% are good.
Yeah.
And when we can do this, I find time and again and again and again that we can get past what it is that divides us.
Yes.
So I believe in that, and that gives me hope. My problem, Jerome, is I'm just this little person, okay? I need, and I'm willing to go into spaces where I am the very first transgender person anybody's ever met live. I'm willing to go into spaces and not talk about me or trans people, but to talk about how compassion, kindness, how powerful those are for all humans, okay? And that it's all both sides of the ledger, compassion and kindness. There is no political barrier. There's no political test to compassion. And that, and I believe in the power of that word. Bobby Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy used that word. And he used the word love, that we need to love each other. I mean, those are powerful phrases.
Yes.
They are. We just need to use them more.
I completely agree. And I think that we should do whatever we can. If you would like to hear Ellie speak, you just heard, she will come to your town, she will come to your church. You will find her contact information at elliekrug.com. We're going to take a coffee break and be right back. Hey y'all, I wanted to take a second to thank Kiehl's for their support of the LGBTQ community. This year for Pride, Bottomless Coffee partnered with Kiehl's and hosted Pride Trivia at the Kiehl's in the Mall of America. It was educational, it was enlightening, and it was a really fun time. I had no idea that Kiehl's has been supporting our community for over 20 years, but I do now. If you happen to find yourself in Minnesota, be sure to drop by the Kiehl's in the Mall of America to say hi. And please do tell them that Jerome sent you. That's not good for a discount, but you'll definitely get some brownie points. Okay, let's get back to the conversation. Hey, welcome back. You are watching Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. We are here having a beautiful conversation with Ellie Krug. Ellie, like I mentioned earlier, we are sponsored by the Minnesota Department of Health, and I saw on your website that you'd previously done impact reports. Those were interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And that got me really interested in your experience over that period of years. So like, how weird did you get during lockdown, you know?
So, so beginning in late 2016, I had been the executive director of a nonprofit, legal access nonprofit, and then I had been speaking and training about human inclusivity on the side, and I decided I didn't want to do the nonprofit work anymore. I wanted to do the human inclusivity work. Yeah. So between late 16 and March of 2020, I was speaking. I mean, one year I spoke almost 200 times.
Oh my gosh.
Across the country. And 95% of it was live.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting on a plane, going all over the place, or driving, or whatever. Yeah. And a lot of speaking here in the Twin Cities. On March 13th, I was in Cedar Rapids, my hometown. I had just given 3 talks the day before. I got in the car in the morning to drive back to Cedar Rapids. To drive back to Minneapolis. Yes. And in the 4 hours that it took, I got calls from 4 clients canceling talks because of COVID. And that put my work, my mission work, I mean, it certainly put impacted income, but my mission work is about trying to make the world better, okay? Yeah. All right? And that put it into a tailspin. And I was very concerned about, one, paying the bills, but also concerned about, is this it? Am I done? Am I done being able to try and make a difference in the world?
Oh my gosh.
But with the help of some great allies, I learned about Zoom. I learned how to do Zoom. And then, so between April of 2020 and the beginning of this year, I did probably 350 online talks.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it got pulled back.
Yeah.
And now more and more things are going live. And so that's happened. But so we got past the pandemic, okay?
Yes.
And of course, George Floyd's murder occurred, in June of 2020. And so my business really did explode because people wanted me to come in and speak. I have a talk around white fragility and skin color.
Yo-yoing, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But then what's happened, of course, is now we've had we've had January 6th, we've had, the increase of anti-LGBTQ things. And as one of my friends said, Ellie, you're the wokest of the woke, because not only am I, LGBTQ, but I happen to also be, do DEI work. And so it's like a double whammy. And so I have seen, because of the anti-wokeism, even though we're here in Minnesota, which is very progressive, thank you, right? We have a lot of protections, and this legislative season even more protections. Even though that's the case, this anti-wokeism stuff is seeping in.
Yeah.
And I work with a lot of companies and colleges and universities and governmental systems, and they're becoming afraid. They don't want somebody coming in and running the risk that maybe it's only one person,
Right.
but that one person's going to be verbal and is going to say, you're indoctrinating us and making a fuss. And they don't know how to deal with that one person. So rather than learn how to deal with that one person, maybe we just don't do anything that's going to make anybody uncomfortable.
It's interesting. I feel like it's that one person, and I don't have the data for it. So I'm just wondering aloud, I guess, if the same person who was like, oh, they're putting, nanobots in the vaccine, so no one get vaccinated, is also the person who's saying, oh, Ellie's going to make me a better person. And I just, I'm like, what radio show are they listening to? What is the input here? Because they're a real cog in the wheel in the work to make things better for everyone. And I do agree that companies have a really hard time kind of, I guess, balancing the idea that everyone's voice needs to be heard, but also, muting some voices that should really be muted.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you can use it as a teaching moment on how to deal with the one that is the dissenter, okay? And you can model that we'll hear them, but we won't allow them to dictate what it is for the majority. And I think that the majority of people are really open. People want tools. They want to learn how to be good to each other. They do. I firmly believe that. I do. But people, we're back to this fear thing, and people aren't, and leaders of organizations aren't good with fear. So I don't know what is going to happen, but it's been profound. I mean, last year, I did 22 or 23 talks in June around human inclusivity, some around training what it meant to be transgender. This June, I did 5 talks. It was just a dramatic difference and change. Yeah. And it's just simply because of the tenor of what's going on in the country right now. And for me, it's frustrating because I need to get in front of people in order for me to make them consider ideas that maybe will help change the world for the better.
I mean, because this is all you're doing now. You mentioned earlier that you're no longer practicing law.
No longer.
But you were practicing during the beginning of the pandemic. How did that change?
No.
Oh, you weren't?
No,
okay.
I haven't practiced law. The last court appearance I ever made was before the Iowa Supreme Court in September of 2011.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I was the first transgender person who ever appeared before the Iowa Supreme Court.
Then you were out.
And I was done. Yeah. Literally, that was the end.
Now, so you said that was 2011?
Mm-hmm.
Then your memoir came out 2013?
Yep.
Okay. So did you did your thing with the Supreme Court, and then you were like, I'm going to get writing?
Well, I had been writing up even before then. And so I had, lawyers learn how to write a certain way. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I had to go back to school to learn how to write like a human and not like a lawyer. So I took some classes at the Loft here in Minneapolis and learned how to...
an open book.
Open book,
Yeah.
And learned how to write and tell stories, and so from 2009, when I, right before I moved up here to the end of 2012, I was working on the book.
And tell us what the book is called. Tell us about, because it's still selling. So
it is absolutely still selling. The book is titled "Getting to Ellen," a memoir about love, honesty, and gender change. So it's my memoir. It's my story, and it's a book And it, you know, I don't know how I was able. Well, I do know how. I got a lot of help with the book, and a lot of help, a lot of professional help, and then I was in a book group or a writing group where I was the worst writer, and you know, if you're going to get into a writing group, you want to be the worst writer. You don't want to be the best writer.
Yeah, you get money out of it. Yeah.
And so, but the book is, even though it's my story, it's about really facing our demons. You know, it has a universal approach about how all of us are trying to strive to find our authenticity one way or another. And some authenticity is about gender or, you know, or sexual identity, okay? But other authenticity about being a writer or being an artist or being a singer or being a, you know, a musician or being a crafter. Michael's is your second home, you know, or being a hiker or a fisher person or whatever. Authenticity shows up in a variety of ways, but there are many, many barriers for us to live authentically. And my book is really about a journey to overcome barriers, to finally get to live as who I am. And that included being an idealist, because I've always been an idealist since I was a little kid when, you know, I was alive when Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy were alive. I mean, I got to hear them in real time, okay, on TV, and read their words as, you know, right hot off the press. And so their words made me idealistic, but I couldn't be idealistic when I was hiding a part of me as it related to me being female. You know, you suppress part of your identity, it's really hard to let other parts of your identity come out.
Well, you had, if I'm getting my timelines right, you'd still been transitioned for a relatively short period of time when you wrote the memoir, when it was published.
Yes, you're right.
So it's been 10 years now. Is there any chance that you might write another memoir?
I've been working on that second memoir since the summer of 2013. You know, and it's gone in fits and starts, but it's interesting that you ask, because I had 5 days open from, you know, July 2nd until, or the 1st until the 5th or whatever, 6th. And so I said, because the third draft is looking at me in a notebook on the floor of my office. And I said, okay. So I went into my sunroom. There was another smaller desk in my sunroom. I moved it from against the wall to behind some chairs so I can look out the sliding glass door. And I made my sunroom into a writing room.
Oh, wonderful.
And I started back on the book. And I cannot tell you the amount of joy that it has given me. I'm back to writing and riding my bike, and the thing about writing is that you get the words down, and for me, I describe myself as a bus stop writer. Okay, it's not very glamorous. It's not very pretty, but it'll do the trick when you need it. When you need it, okay.
Okay.
But for me, the process is get the words down, revise, revise, and a lot of that revision is in my head. I'm on my bike, and I'm thinking about that's a phrase. No, you're gonna use put this when you go back. You're gonna use this word instead of that word. It's gonna be way better. Oh no, you got to complete. You didn't say enough about this section. But these things come in my brain. And I will tell you, Jerome, what that does is it gives me joy.
Good.
And it also is keeping me alive because it keeps my brain working.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm hopeful that having my own writing room now, having the book right there, it's open, we're working on it every day. I'm hopeful that I can get it done finally.
Well, I'm excited for it. I don't know if you're in a position to tease any of it for us. You have a favorite part that you've written so far, by any chance?
Well, I have. So the first book is titled Getting to Ellen.
Yeah.
The second book is titled Being Ellen.
Okay.
A newly minted woman challenges the world. Okay? And so the book opens with a man in a bar sneaking up on me and asking me, "Are you a dude?"
Oh. And, okay, wait, because I want to help you sell books. And to find out more about the story.
Well, have me back and I'll share the book when the book comes out. So.
But I assume the announcement, I'm going to put the words in your mouth. The announcement of the new book, when it's ready, will come out on elliekrug.com, ELLIEKRUG.com, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. Our website is bottomlesscoffeeshow.com. I don't think I've plugged that at all this episode. We are speaking with Ellie Krug. The conversation has been phenomenal, but I think we've gotten to the point where we need to talk about concrete steps to support the trans community. My friend Aaron, I have a lot of Aarons in my life. This one is my friend Aaron. We did a podcast together on this exact topic, specifically on how gay men can be better allies to our trans siblings. And a lot came out of it. But I'm interested in the take of an actual trans human instead of two gay guys like deciding what we're gonna do, you know? Sometimes that's not helpful.
No. Well, historically there have been some schisms between the gay and lesbian community and the trans community. And so the support of gay men and lesbians right now, incredibly important for trans folks. Incredibly, incredibly important.
Okay.
I think the most important thing, well, no, not the most important, but the most basic thing that somebody can do is at least be aware of what's happening. And that takes some self-education. That takes taking the time to read what's going on across the country. And, we're all so busy, we've got our own little news feeds. But so one of the big obstacles that I find when I talk to people is they have no idea about the fact that, they're out of the 500 plus anti-LGBTQ bills this legislative season, the vast majority of them were anti-trans. They have no idea about the 20 states that ban gender affirming care for trans kids. And that's really only this legislative season that's happened. They have no idea that right now it's illegal for me to use the restroom, the women's restroom in Florida and in a couple of other states. They have no idea about that. So there is a resource, and it's another Aaron. So it's,
you're kidding.
So there's a trans woman named Erin Reed. She's based out of Idaho, I believe, or Montana. She has a website, Erin in the Morning.
Okay.
Everything you ever need to know about what's going on legislatively against transgender, and she she packages it in a way that's easy to read. It's not like snooze fest.
Yeah.
And so, highly recommend. I actually had her on my radio show about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, and Erin in the Morning.
Erin in the Morning. Erin Reed, E-R-I-N, Reed, R-E-E-D.
Now, I'm recalling your website. I think there's a section that links to some of your writing. Does it also link to some of your shows? Like,
yes.
Is that interview on there?
No, no.
Okay.
You have to go to the AM 950 website
I can do that.
to get my shows. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that's too much work for me.
There were a lot of links.
Yeah, it's too much. So, but self-education is the most basic because it helps to make people aware. It's, we talked about earlier. Where's the outrage?
Yeah.
And so you can't even begin to get outraged if you don't understand what's happening. Yeah. So that's the basic way to support the trans community. The second way is just about being human, and that's about if there is a trans person in your life, particularly if they're a trans kid or a trans youth, about letting them know that you care about them. I mean, I tell people if you have a trans kid or youth or human adult in your life, and if they're close to you, go tell them that you love them.
Yeah.
Tell them that they matter, that they're worthy. I go into a lot of schools and I talk at GSAs, Gay Straight Alliances, to queer kids, but a lot of them now are trans and non-binary. And the thing that I continue to hear from them is that other than the teachers, because and they write it off about the educators because it's like they say, oh, that's their job to say that to us. But what I hear consistently from them is that no one tells us that we matter. And so that's one of the things I go in and do. I tell them that.
Yeah.
And so please go, and if you know a trans person, and write them a note. I'm a huge believer in that old-fashioned thing about pen to paper. You can go buy these beautiful note cards. Go to the Walker and get note cards from Hopper or from Calder or whatever. Roscoe. And sit down and write a note to a trans person. But this also works for any human.
Yes.
Okay, Jerome?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And write a note telling them that you're proud of them, that you care about them, that they matter, that they have value in this world, that you have their back, that you've seen how they've been, and that they have great promise. Write those notes to them. And you know why you write a note rather than send a text or call on the phone? Because, first of all, you have to go through the work. And somebody getting that in the mail, they're like, they did that for me?
Yeah.
You got to put a stamp on it, you got to go to all that trouble. But the most important thing is that if you get something in writing, you can put it on the edge of the table. And you can come back to it over and over and over. And it's way better to do that because what is this? Where was that? Where was that? Where was that? And then we'll just lose that. But to have it right there, you have it forever.
Yeah.
And that's important for the heart.
I am. You're bringing back such a wonderful memory. I went to Austin, Texas just a couple of weeks ago. I was sketchy on going to Texas at all. And I went to visit a friend. I stayed in a hotel. I just happened to go to his place the last day. I'm looking around his apartment because I'd never been. And framed was a note that I had sent him years ago that literally just said, "You're the shit." And I had forgotten about it, but it stayed with him. And so your point is so well made, so backed up, because the slightest amount of effort on my part meant enough to him to frame it and put it up on the wall.
And how many times has he looked at that?
Exactly.
Particularly at bad times.
Yeah.
For him, right?
Yeah.
Lastly, it's going to be very self-serving, okay?
Okay.
But you can support the trans community by getting me in front of people, okay? And the reason for that is I don't shame people. I don't yell at them. I'm on a journey. You're on a journey. Let's take this together. Let's talk about compassion and kindness. Let's go together on this thing because we're all surviving the human condition together. And let's just explore that. And what I find, and Jerome, I've gone into the belly of the beast. I have gone to places where they have had negative words about transgender people, religious places. And I've heard afterwards, you were not what we expected. We thought you were going to come and shame us and yell at us, Ellie, and you did not do that. Instead, you talked to us as humans.
Yeah.
And so it's self-serving, but get me in front of people so that I can talk to them.
Absolutely. Even as you're saying that, I'm like, wait, I have, in my other job, I interact with school districts. I interact with business associations. I can do that.
Please do. I would be internally grateful.
Yes.
And it's not about making money. I mean that.
Well, I'm going to make you some money.
Well, but I, the Strib, the Star Tribune, did a story about me in May, and in that story, I talk about that my work. I don't need to do the work in the Twin Cities. There are enough people doing that work. I need to go to places like Greater Minnesota, the Midwest, greater Iowa, greater South Dakota, greater North Dakota. Go to places where no one has ever met a transgender person ever before. And I need to go there because I think that they will like me. And then if they do, I've set the pathway for the next transgender person who comes along.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm trying to cut the brush. I'm trying to blaze the trail. And I can't do that if I can't talk with people.
Well, I said at the top of the hour that this was going to be a privilege, and I think I was correct. I challenge anyone to leave this conversation not feeling inspired and empowered to make the world a better and more inclusive place for anyone. But I do want to give you the last word. Is there a final message that you would like to make sure our audience takes home today?
It is, but you've already heard the word.
We can hear it again. Sometimes it bears repeating.
It's about compassion.
Yes.
It's about, empathy is putting yourself in the shoes of another person to try and feel what they're feeling. And empathy is incredibly important. But compassion is empathy in action. Mm. And it's moving from a place of silence to a place of doing something. And that something could be as simple as a wave. It could be as simple as a hug. It could be simple as writing a note, as what we've talked about. It could be as dramatic as showing up at somebody's doorstep when they are hurting and saying, I am here for you. Okay? And so my last message is that we need to have more compassion in the world for others, but also for ourselves, because many of us are beating ourselves up, and it's important, because if you're not being kind to yourself, it is so much more difficult to be kind to someone else.
Yep.
So one last tool, one last thing. It's a question that we ask each other, ourselves. One question we ask ourselves every day. And the question is this: am I trying my best under current circumstances? If the answer back is, and you got to throw the current circumstances in, because they're always changing. They might change from the morning to the afternoon. But if your answer back is yes, at this very moment, I am doing my best, that is good enough. And that is compassion for you. Too many of us are trying to be perfect. Too many of us are suffering because we can't be a certain way.
Yes.
And it's that suffering that is so unnecessary. Thank you for having me.
Oh. Compassion in action. Thank you for being here. Again, a privilege. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in one last time. I'm Jerome Evans, all over the internet at Jerome T. Evans. You have been treated to a fabulous conversation with Ellie Krug. Find out all about her at elliekrug.com. I would say sign up for the newsletter. I'd say buy the book. And I would refresh, waiting for that second book to drop, personally. You can also stream this episode at bottomlesscoffeeshow.com. And I'm going to go ahead and commit to linking back to your website when that next book does drop. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.